They gave me the night shift because nobody else wanted it. That was fine. I had spent 22 years in the infantry learning to prefer quiet to noise, and the carousel archive was nothing if not quiet. 300 levels of sealed stacks, alien script on every panel, temperature held at 11 degrees year-round. My boots on the grating were the only sound that mattered. I was 61 years old, recently mustered out, and grateful for any work that did not require me to run. The posting had come through a veterans placement office. Guard duty on a research station above a dead moon. No threats on record, no access disputes, no drama. What the station had was scholars, 12 of them during the day's shift, rotating in and out of pressurized reading rooms, handling catalog fragments with long tongs and cautious breath. At night it had me. I walked the circuit every 2 hours. Outer ring, inner ring, sublevel vault, back up. I checked door seals, checked temperature readouts, logged the readings in the physical ledger the station director insisted on keeping alongside the digital one. Old habit of his. I respected it. A ledger does not crash. The coin had been in a cataloging crate on the sublevel intake bench for 11 months before I touched it. I knew it was there. The day shift archivist, a young woman named Pearl, had flagged it in her notes as inert disk, origin unknown. No surface script, no magnetic signature, pending deeper analysis. Pending deeper analysis meant nobody had gotten around to it. There were 40,000 items ahead of it in the queue. The coin sat in a small mesh tray inside the open crate, looking like something a child might find on a beach and pocket without thinking. It was smaller than my palm, dark metal, or something that behaved like metal. Edges worn perfectly smooth. No markings on either face. Not quite flat. The center of each side bowed slightly outward, the way a lens does, as though it had been made to be held rather than displayed, which was an odd thing to notice. I noticed it anyway. I had a habit in the infantry of working a small object in my fingers when I was thinking through a problem. A bullet, a coin, a spent casing. The motion kept my hands busy while my mind ran the angles. It was something my grandfather had done, and his mother before him, according to the family stories. All of them builders and fixers by trade, people who thought with their hands as much as their heads. My grandmother had re-engineered the water reclamation system on her colony station 3 times over the course of 40 years, each time improving the previous design, never satisfied. My father had built roads on 2 different worlds. I had spent my military career in the engineering corps before a lateral transfer put me in a line infantry unit. And even then, I was the one the officers came to when something needed improvising under fire. Old habit. I picked up the coin on my 3rd pass through the sublevel that night, and I started turning it. I was thinking about the temperature variance on level 7, a seal that was pulling half a degree warmer than it should, not enough to alarm, enough to watch. I was running the likely causes in my mind, turning the problem the way I was turning the coin, looking for the angle I had not yet tried. The disc was warm in my fingers. I registered that only as background data. The station was cool. I was warm. Thermal transfer between my hand and the metal was expected. Then the warmth reversed. It did not burn. It did not shock. It was a deep, settled heat that moved from the surface of the coin into my palm, up through the base of my thumb, into the bones of my wrist, and then went still, as though something had just finished reading a very long document and set it down, satisfied. I stopped walking. The coin had not changed visibly. No glow, no script appearing on its surface. It sat in my palm exactly as it had. 2 smooth dark faces, edges worn soft. But the weight of it had changed, not its mass, its weight. The way a room changes weight when someone important walks in. When the air understands something has shifted, I stood in the middle of the intake corridor for what I later calculated was about 90 seconds, holding the coin, waiting. My training had taught me to wait when I did not yet understand a situation. Reaction without information is waste. The voice, when it came, was not in the air. It was in my skull, behind the bridge of my nose, in the exact place where a bone conduction earpiece sits when you have worn one long enough. Not loud, not urgent, precise. The way a technical readout sounds when it has been waiting a long time to give you a number it is confident in. First mind returned. 3 words, and then silence. I stood there long enough that my back began to ache, which is a reliable signal that considerable time has passed when you are 61. I turned the coin over once more. Both faces still smooth, still dark, still warm. First mind returned. I had been a soldier. I was not a scholar. I did not know the deep history of the Carousel archive, beyond what the station orientation materials covered, that predated human spaceflight by somewhere between 9 and 12,000 years, that its builders were unknown, that the archive itself appeared to be a cataloging system for something larger and older than anyone had yet identified. The scholars argued about the builders constantly, competing hypotheses. Nobody agreed. I had not thought about the builders at all, beyond noting that they had built well. The seals held. The temperature regulation was elegant. The structural tolerances were generous, not because the builders had been wasteful, but because they had anticipated use, long use, by people who would come and go and need the structure to outlast them. That is how engineers think. You build for the person who comes after you, not for yourself. My grandmother had told me that. So had my father. So had the instructor in the Corps who had pulled me out of line infantry and put me in engineering school, saying only that I thought in the right sequence. Problem first, solution second, consequence third, always in that order. First mind returned. I sat down on the intake bench, which I was not supposed to do, and I held the coin in both hands, and I let myself understand what it was telling me. 11,000 years ago, someone had built this place. Not to store things. Storage is easy. Storage is just space and time. They had built it to think. The archive was a mind system, a structure designed to hold and cross-reference and connect knowledge across timescales that individual minds could not span. And they had left something behind. Not a message, not a recording, a test, the kind that does not announce itself as a test. A small object, worn smooth, shaped for a hand, waiting to be picked up by someone who held problems in their fingers while their mind ran the angles. Someone who built things to last. Someone who thought in sequence. Someone whose line had been carrying that particular way of thinking, undiluted, for longer than the archive had been silent. I am not a sentimental person. The infantry cures you of that, or it tries to. But I sat on that intake bench in the cold of the sublevel, and I felt, with a clarity that had nothing to do with sentiment, the full length of the chain. My grandmother's reclamation system. My father's roads. The instructor who recognized something in the way I sequenced problems. And before all of them, back through generations of builders and engineers and soldiers who fixed things under fire, back to someone who had stood in a place not unlike this one and thought, build it to last, build it for the one who comes after, trust the chain. The coin was still warm. I logged the temperature variance on level 7 in the physical ledger. 1/2 degree. Seal pull, southeast quadrant, gasket fatigue, likely. I noted my recommended service window. Then I added one additional line below the standard entry, which I had never done before in 11 months of night shifts. Sublevel intake, 0340 hours. Coin and crate 7 responsive. Recommend restricted access pending full analysis. No asar. Recommend scholar review at earliest opportunity. I did not write what it had said. That was mine. Not because I intended to keep it from the record, but because I did not yet have the right words for the record, and I had learned in the infantry and out of it that you do not write a thing down until you know exactly what it is. I know what it is now. It is a key, not to a door, to a responsibility. The archive was never meant to run without a mind at its center, a living mind that could build and adapt and think in sequence, that could hold the long view the way an engineer holds a structure in their head before the first stone is laid. It had been waiting for 11,000 years for that mind to walk back in, wearing whatever shape the chain had given it, carrying whatever name the years had placed on it. It had found one, 61 years old, bad back, night shift. That is the thing about chains, if they are built well. They hold.